I never thought I'd be the type of father who'd sneak around his own house, but there I was, tiptoeing up the stairs like some kind of detective. My daughter Emma had been working with this new tutor, Marcus, for 3 weeks now. Her grades were improving dramatically. Too dramatically, if I'm being honest. When a kid goes from failing algebra to acing every test, a parent starts asking questions. The house was unusually quiet that Tuesday afternoon. My wife was at her book club, and I'd come home early from work with a splitting headache. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear muffled voices coming from Emma's room. Nothing unusual there. Tutoring sessions were supposed to be interactive. But something felt off. The tone was different, more intense somehow. I paused outside her door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Part of me felt guilty for even considering eavesdropping, but my parental instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. Emma had been acting strange lately, secretive, defensive whenever we asked about her sessions with Marcus. She'd even started locking her bedroom door during their meetings, claiming it helped her concentrate better. The voices inside grew more animated. I could hear Marcus speaking in urgent, hushed tones, and Emma responding with what sounded like excitement mixed with fear. My heart began racing. Every worst-case scenario a father could imagine started flooding my mind. I'd done my research on Marcus before hiring him. Clean background check, excellent references, degree from a prestigious university. But you never really know someone, do you? Taking a deep breath, I slowly turned the handle and pushed the door open just a crack. What I saw through that narrow opening made my blood run cold. Marcus was leaning over Emma, his face inches from hers, and she was lying flat on her back on the bed. Her eyes were closed, and she appeared to be completely motionless. My worst fears seemed to be materializing right before my eyes. Without thinking, I burst through the door, ready to protect my daughter from whatever horror was unfolding. "What the hell is going on here?" I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. Both Marcus and Emma jumped, startled by my sudden entrance. But their reactions weren't what I expected. Instead of guilt or panic, I saw something else entirely. Surprise, yes, but also disappointment? Emma sat up quickly, and I noticed something strange. There were wires attached to her temples, connected to some kind of electronic device I'd never seen before. If you enjoyed the story, leave your comment, give it a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Dad, you scared us, Emma exclaimed, pulling the strange wires from her temples with obvious frustration. Marcus, a tall, lanky guy in his mid-20s with thick-rimmed glasses, looked equally startled but not guilty, which confused me even more. If I just caught him doing something inappropriate, shouldn't he be scrambling for excuses or trying to flee? "I can explain everything, Mr. Patterson," Marcus said calmly, adjusting his glasses and gesturing toward the mysterious device on Emma's nightstand. "This probably looks very strange to you, but I assure you, everything we're doing here is completely legitimate and, frankly, revolutionary." I stood there, still breathing heavily from the adrenaline rush, trying to process what I was seeing. The device looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Sleek, metallic, with blinking lights and a small screen displaying what appeared to be brain-wave patterns. Emma was looking at me with that expression teenagers perfect. The one that says, "You're embarrassing me and you don't understand anything." "Revolutionary," I repeated, my voice still carrying an edge of suspicion. "What exactly is that thing, and why is it attached to my daughter's head?" Marcus stood up and walked over to the device, his movements careful and deliberate. "Mr. Patterson, what you're looking at is a prototype neural enhancement system. I'm not just a tutor, I'm a graduate student in neuroscience at the university, and I've been developing this technology as part of my doctoral thesis." Emma volunteered to be one of my test subjects. My mind was reeling. Test subject? You're experimenting on my daughter. The protective father in me was ready to explode again, but something in Marcus's demeanor made me pause. He wasn't acting like someone who'd been caught doing something wrong. If anything, he seemed excited to explain what they were doing. Emma jumped in before Marcus could respond. "Dad, it's not like that at all. This is incredible. Marcus has invented something that can actually help people learn faster and retain information better. The device stimulates specific neural pathways while I study, making it easier for my brain to form new connections and remember complex concepts. I looked between my daughter and this young man who I was beginning to realize might be some kind of genius rather than a predator. And this is why your grades have improved so dramatically? Exactly, Marcus nodded enthusiastically. The traditional tutoring methods were helping, but the neural enhancement accelerates the process exponentially. Emma's brain is literally being rewired to be more efficient at processing mathematical concepts. But even as they explained, something still felt off. There was an undercurrent of excitement in both their voices that seemed to go beyond just improved test scores. As I stood there trying to absorb this information, I noticed something else that made my stomach churn with a different kind of worry. Emma and Marcus kept exchanging glances, not the kind you'd expect between a student and tutor, but something more intimate, more conspiratorial. There was definitely more to this story. Okay, let's say I believe this neural enhancement explanation, I said, crossing my arms. Why all the secrecy? Why lock the door? Why didn't you tell us about this experimental technology before using it on our daughter? Marcus shifted uncomfortably, and Emma looked down at her hands. The excitement in the room suddenly deflated, replaced by an awkward tension that confirmed my suspicions that I still wasn't getting the whole truth. The thing is, Mr. Patterson, Marcus began hesitantly, the university doesn't exactly know I'm conducting these trials yet. The technology is still in very early stages, and the ethics committee would never approve human testing this soon. But the results Emma has been achieving are so remarkable that I felt it was worth the risk. Worth the risk. I felt my anger rising again. You're conducting unauthorized medical experiments on my 15-year-old daughter. It's not medical, Dad, Emma interjected quickly. It's just educational enhancement. And the results speak for themselves. I understand algebra now in ways I never thought possible. It's like Marcus unlocked a part of my brain that was always there but just couldn't access before. But there was something in her voice, a dreamy quality that sent chills down my spine. I'd heard that tone before, from people who'd been involved in things they shouldn't have been. Emma, how exactly does this device make you feel when it's operating? She hesitated, glancing at Marcus before answering. It's hard to describe. At first, there's this tingling sensation, and then everything becomes incredibly clear. It's like suddenly being able to see in high definition when you've been looking at everything through a foggy window your whole life. But it's more than just mental clarity, it's almost euphoric. The word euphoric hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd worked in pharmaceutical sales for years before switching careers, and I knew that any device or substance that produced euphoric effects was potentially dangerous, especially for developing brains. Marcus, I said, my voice taking on a more serious tone, I need you to be completely honest with me. What exactly are the long-term effects of this technology? Have there been any other test subjects? And most importantly, is this thing addictive? The long pause before he answered told me everything I needed to know. Marcus's silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost all of its earlier confidence. Mr. Patterson, I want to be completely transparent with you, but what I'm about to tell you might be difficult to hear. Emma was looking back and forth between us, and I could see a flicker of concern in her eyes for the first time since I'd entered the room. Whatever Marcus was about to reveal, she didn't know it either. The truth is, Marcus continued, running his hands through his hair, Emma isn't my first test subject. Over the past 6 months, I've worked with 12 other students, all with remarkable initial results. The neural enhancement technology does exactly what I said it does. It dramatically improves learning capacity and retention. But what? I demanded, though I was dreading the answer. There have been some unexpected side effects. The euphoric sensation Emma mentioned? It becomes more pronounced with repeated use. 3 of my test subjects became dependent on the sessions. They couldn't focus on their studies without the device, and when I tried to wean them off it, their academic performance didn't just return to baseline, it actually got worse than before we started. Emma's face went pale. You never told me that. You said the effects were permanent. I thought they would be, Marcus said defensively. The early research suggested that the neural pathways we were strengthening would remain enhanced even after discontinuing use. But it appears the brain becomes reliant on the artificial stimulation. I felt a cold rage building inside me. So you've been getting my daughter addicted to some kind of brain-stimulating device? What happened to the other students who became dependent? Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. 2 of them recovered after several weeks of withdrawal-like symptoms, difficulty concentrating, mood swings, depression. But one of them. He trailed off, unable to meet my eyes. One of them, what? I pressed. Sarah Chen. She was a junior at Westfield High. Brilliant girl, struggling with chemistry. After 8 weeks of treatment, she was getting perfect scores on every test. But when I tried to end the sessions, she became desperate. She broke into my apartment one night, trying to steal the device. When I caught her, she was trying to operate it on herself without supervision. Emma gasped. What happened to her? The device malfunctioned. Without proper calibration, it delivered too much stimulation to her temporal lobe. She had a seizure and fell, hitting her head on my coffee table. She's been in a coma for 3 weeks now. The room fell completely silent. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My daughter had been unknowingly participating in dangerous, illegal medical experiments, and now I was learning that another child was lying in a hospital bed because of this technology. But then Emma said something that chilled me to the bone. I don't care about Sarah. I need this, Dad. You don't understand what it's like to finally feel smart. Emma's words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The daughter I thought I knew, compassionate, empathetic Emma, had just dismissed another girl's suffering because she was afraid of losing her artificial intelligence boost. But as I looked at her more closely, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Emma, I said slowly, when did you start working with Marcus? 3 weeks ago, like you said, she replied, but there was something off about her response. Her eyes darted away from mine, and she fidgeted with the device's wires. Marcus, I turned to him, how long have you actually been working with my daughter? He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. The guilty expression on his face told me everything I needed to know. The truth, Marcus. Now. 4 months, he whispered. We've been doing this for 4 months. My world tilted. 4 months. But Emma's grades only started improving 3 weeks ago. We only hired you 3 weeks ago. Emma stood up abruptly, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that terrified me. A cold calculation that didn't belong in a 15-year-old's face. Dad, she said, her voice eerily calm, there's something you need to understand. Marcus didn't approach you about tutoring. I found him. I sought him out after hearing about his research from Sarah Chen, before her accident. What are you saying? I'm saying that I've been sneaking out of the house for months to participate in these sessions. The tutoring arrangement was just a cover story so we could meet here, at home, without suspicion. I convinced Marcus to approach you with fake references and a fabricated background. I staggered backward, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. That's impossible. I researched him. I called his references. Marcus looked ashamed but nodded. Emma helped me create false identities for the references. She's incredibly intelligent, Mr. Patterson, even before the neural enhancement. She researched exactly what you'd be looking for in a tutor and helped me craft the perfect persona. But why? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer would be worse than anything I'd imagined so far. Emma walked over to the window and stared out at our quiet suburban street. When she spoke, her voice was distant, almost robotic. Because I was tired of being ordinary, Dad. Tired of struggling in school while everyone else seemed to get things so easily. When I heard about Marcus's research, I knew it was my chance to become special. Emma, you were always special to us. She turned around, and the look in her eyes was one I'd never seen before. Ancient, calculating, and utterly foreign. No, Dad. I wasn't. But I am now. And here's what you don't understand yet. The neural enhancement doesn't just improve learning. After prolonged use, it fundamentally changes brain structure. I'm not the same person I was 4 months ago. I'm smarter, more focused, more capable of achieving my goals. What goals? I asked, though I was afraid to hear the answer. Well, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. First, I needed to ensure I could continue the treatments without interference. That meant bringing Marcus here, under the guise of legitimate tutoring. Second, I needed to understand exactly how the technology worked so I could replicate it. She walked over to her desk and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out a notebook filled with detailed technical drawings and equations that looked far too advanced for a high school student. I've been documenting everything, Dad. Every session, every calibration, every neural pathway mapping. I've essentially reverse-engineered Marcus's entire system. Marcus was staring at her in horror. Emma, what are you talking about? You're 15 years old. You can't possibly understand the complexity of... Can't I? She interrupted, her voice sharp. I've been enhanced for 4 months, Marcus. My IQ has increased by over 40 points. I understand your technology better than you do now. The final, unbelievable truth hit me like a freight train. You're planning to build your own device. I've already built it, she said matter-of-factly. It's hidden in the basement. More advanced than Marcus's prototype, with safeguards to prevent the kind of accident that happened to Sarah. I've been using both devices for the past 2 weeks, Marcus's during our sessions, and mine late at night while you and Mom sleep. I looked at this person who looked like my daughter but was revealing herself to be someone else entirely. Emma, what have you become? She tilted her head, studying me with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining a specimen. I've become what I was always meant to be, Dad. The question is, what are you going to do about it? As she asked this question, I noticed she was holding something in her hand, a smaller version of the neural device, sleek and portable. And she was pointing it directly at me. Because I've discovered something interesting about the technology. It doesn't just enhance intelligence in willing subjects. With the right modifications, it can also influence memory and decision-making in unwilling ones. The last thing I remember thinking before everything went black was that I had never really known my daughter at all.